We are now live and ready to go.
We are back. We are so back, like the kids like to say now.
We're so back.
Have you heard that one?
No.
Oh, as a father of two, you haven't heard that one?
No, they don't.
Oh.
They're not as candid with me as they. You're around the youngsters in a different way. They're probably saying all kinds of things.
We are so back is a popular saying that's very much in vogue right now.
I still hear like bro, like I still bro or bro. I still hear that. And that's fine. It's what I get.
Yeah, cool. So it's been a couple of weeks. What do you want to talk about today?
We discussed we have an article we took with some source material that we got. But I liked it because it said 10 signs of a genuinely brilliant person that can't be faked. And so reading this article, I saw a lot that resonated with me, and we've had lots of discussions that revolve around lots of these topics. So I thought it was a great thing to get into, and just add on to what our normal chats are about.
Yeah, but before we go there though, you're going to Jamaica in a couple of days.
Yeah, it's going to Jamaica,
yeah.
The motherland. It'll be, as I was telling you before, I think it'll be last trip from, I'll be able to go and see my mom. My mom is aging, and it's, it's where I was born, so it holds, a place for me. But, and my brother has a special event going on there, so it's just, it lined up. I've got some personal and professional things that have all lined up, and it's fallen into place, and so I'm just looking forward to just going and not having any responsibility, but getting up and looking at the sun and maybe eating some nice food.
Nice. Do you think you can bring any of these 10 brilliant signs incorporate them into the trip any way that you can display in yourself or to look for in others when there are times of imperfection?
Oh,
as the event that you're going for, yeah. There's room for messiness, because personal life is bound to be messy sometimes.
Yeah, the one I made notes on here is just rising to meet challenges, and that I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but sometimes we're not even sure that what we're facing is a challenge, and other times, even if we are, sometimes we don't know how to rise to meet it. But what I sort of like to do in general is, if something's happened and I think that maybe I made a mistake or haven't represented myself in the way that I think is possible or better, then I try to reflect on it and say, well, how do I want to show up? How can I rise to this challenge and sort of not being taken down by it? Because, things, you find yourself at the bottom of a pit sometimes, literally or figuratively. But oftentimes when as you intend to stand up and do what you think is the best thing to do, that can be very hard, because it means that you have to take ownership of what you're saying, you're doing. You have to feel the threat or the incoming, whatever that is, the thing someone said, the behavior someone's done it's bothersome. But how do I step up and do the thing that's I think the best thing to do, even though it may not feel like the best thing to do. It's weird. What do you know if your thoughts about that?
I think sometimes, especially both of us are in academia, we put a lot of words around things, but then the most powerful thing is application. So is there a specific, as you said, a lot of great words there, and it made sense to me, but then it would resonate a lot more if you were to provide an example in which you're open with sharing. Okay. Just so we can, dig a little deeper.
So I'll give you an example. Somebody, a family member, said something to me this morning that I found
fresh Band-Aid.
I found difficult to hear. It started as a question, and then it felt like, well, I'm answering the question, but the response was not. It was like, okay, I don't like the answer that you're giving me, and so I'm going to repeat the thing that I want you to do. And this became frustrating because, I'm answering the best way I can, and so I felt like the challenge here was this person was struggling with something. They needed help. They wanted my help, but they didn't know how to ask for it properly or in a way that signifies that they need help. They wanted to tell me what they wanted me to do. and this is something, and as it relates to rising to meet the challenge was for me to identify that the language here was triggering and threatening, we'll use that word. And at first, I was able to sort of, okay, but then as we continued, I started to feel my frustration going, and it's like, okay,
handle it.
And not ideal, not well, right? I would, it wasn't terrible, no F-bombs came out, and it wasn't accusing anything or anything, but at some point it's like, okay, I get into this, when I find that the conversation's not going well, it's because we're getting into this, what we call, for lack of better words, tit for tat. Yeah, well, you did. Oh, no, well, you don't understand. Well, you don't understand. And while that retort seems reasonable at the time, it's actually one of the cues I'm trying to remember when I reflect is that actually, it's like someone says, well, you don't understand. This isn't meant as a literal thing. This is just a defense that they're playing up all the time. And so how do I respond to this defense? Do I respond with an attack or a volley? Or do I like, okay, I hear what you're saying here, but I think that maybe...
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is, when it is an appropriate time to accept consolation within a battle so that you can continue to sustain the longevity of the war. That's what I'm hearing.
And to put in relationships, how do I preserve this to maintain the relationship over the long term? Because winning this battle isn't going to benefit the relationship in the longer term. Yeah. Even whether or not I'm right or wrong is less important.
Yeah, so something that similar but very, very different to that situation of that I hope that I was able to provide that signaling of being a genuinely brilliant person. And I don't claim to be that, but like based on the source material we're using, just one of the points we use is I was at dinner with a couple friends, and the topic of artificial intelligence came up. And artificial intelligence, about the appropriate usage of it in the workplace. One of those four people at the table began to go off the rails a little bit. He began to discuss and question if artificial intelligence is able to generate original thought. And great question, of course, because that's very, very interesting to me as a somewhat philosophical person in my personal and professional life. But then we kept going. It was 3.5 minutes. I know this because in the background we were there was a basketball game, so I was able to take a look at what was happening. And then at one point I just had to pause him. I was like, "Hey man, let's get locked in. What is your thesis surrounding this?" And then I went to the other person. I was like, "Hey, what did you want us to get from this conversation?" And then right after that, got solved in 1 more minute, and then we moved on to other things. So I think that is a sign not of being brilliant, but that's a sign of just being emotionally aware that when things start slipping from you, the easiest thing is to be like, shoot, I'm just gonna explode or let go. What's the best metaphor? Let go of the rope. But I was like, I'm not letting go of this rope because I haven't seen these couple people in together as this group for months. And there's better usage of our time than this, than discussing something in which you can share with me one-on-one. You are just trying to overtake and override this conversation with a thought in which is important to you, but is it important? But have you considered is this important to three other people? So I wasn't willing to let go of the rope.
I think you demonstrate good skill at okay, I heard what it is. How do we connect this how do we make this more succinct? What is the thesis? Can you succinctly sum this up? Succinctness is not one of my advanced skills. But what I'm saying is that working on it, right? But I think that's a perfect example. Okay, you're saying something that isn't provable or unprovable. We are waxing philosophic, and it's now taking more time and energy, and we're not getting anywhere. And I'd like to value the time we have together because we don't see each other very often. Let's cut to the chase, as it were, but not in a way that's dismissive. I think your question was excellent. What's your thesis?
Summarize it. Yeah.
And I think that presentation allows the person to focus without feeling threatened. Oh, okay, well, what's my thesis on this?
Yep.
Then I have to, right?
Because especially in, gotta be very careful here.
Yes.
Especially when having conversations with certain members of the opposite gender, I learned this strategy when talking with them, when they have more thoughts than is what is required at that certain moment. It's like, let's center. Like, what do I need to hear here? Like, what is there's so many ways to say that, but
yeah.
What is your thesis is my preferred way, because I think it's my own life experience as being an academic and a lifelong learner, and I think that also hits someone differently because it is succinct. It's like I'm asking for brevity with something succinct. What is your thesis? That's 4 words.
I think you also recognize the context of the situation. You know, on the court side or whatever, and borough, we don't have time for a long-winded discussion about.
We're talking basketball.
Well, yeah, I'm saying you said you
were
talking about you were all together. That's my understanding of the.
Oh, we're at dinner.
Oh, you were at dinner.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you guys were
But
talking.
yeah, we can also talk about that.
Yeah.
Basketball, you can't talk for that long.
That's right.
I need to give you this information.
That's right. And we say, and we're at dinner. Like, okay. So you were saying that we haven't seen each other in a long time, and you know what? Fair enough. This is an interesting topic, but I don't want this topic to consume the entire.
It could have gone for 30 minutes.
It could have gone more.
Yeah.
And that I think that's a way of getting that person to acknowledge, hey, I do want to hear what you have to say, but I don't want to. I'm here. I don't want to give up all the time for this thing. How can we discuss, allow you to wrap up, get something out of it, and then we can move on to something else?
Yes, because I think we've both experienced that in different avenues. Mm-hmm. Myself through basketball coaching and yourself through teaching college students. Like, consistently, there's one person who has more questions and more comments than everyone else.
Yes.
How do we get that person to summarize, not for the sake of dismissing them, because I love enthusiasm. I can't speak on your behalf.
Yeah, I do.
However, life is a team sport. It needs to be more egalitarian. How do we also derive value and give value to those who may not be open to speaking in a big group, and empower them to have a voice?
You know, it's fun. I had a very similar experience with a student who always asks very interesting and curious questions, but we don't have the time for, and so I had to say that, and I felt like I said, okay, well, you know what? That's a good question. Can you, ask the AI or Google? He said, well, I want to generate discussion. I'm like, that's totally cool. However, but later I said to him, you know what? I want you to stay curious. Don't worry about what me or anybody else says. However, my job is to manage the time. So I want to hear what you have to say, but also I may have to shut it off or move it forward. And so I think they appreciated that because I came back after and made sure that they understood that I want them to have the questions, but,
Yeah, because I think your key piece there was you closed the loop. You didn't just say, just ask the AI, because I think a lot of people would have been in that situation. We don't have time for that, and then you don't address it after. Mm-hmm. My similar but different example of this is while I was coaching an academy girls team last Tuesday. In the last 10, we have certain rules where in the first 30 minutes of the game must be even playing time, and the last 10 minutes you can play whoever you want. So I had a scheduled substitution at like the 4-minute mark. I wanted to get more size on the floor to take off one of our quicker players and just to match the other team's size for size. Mm-hmm. But there wasn't a stoppage in play where that could happen for a good minute and a half. And then the athlete I was planning to sub dribbled the ball off her knee, which led to the substitution. So after that happened, I was very conscious. I went straight to her and said, it wasn't because you made a mistake here. I had this plan for 2 minutes because, as you can see, we are giving up a lot of size. And you understand that's the team dynamics that we need to match size for size. I want you to keep doing what you do. Mm-hmm. This wasn't because of that. And I kept it nice and short. This was not because of a mistake.
Excellent. I think that's important because young budding learners, that moment, had you not said anything, they would have, oh, he pulled me because I messed up.
Dribble off your knee all you want. You're 12 years old.
It happens, right? So even in my own, I tried to model that where I'm like, okay, well, this is still a human person. Regardless of my view of how they felt, I think it's good to follow up, just check in and let them know, hey, this is what happened. And then that is what, but later other students said, oh, you know what? thank you for saying that, I appreciate that, and then they move on, and then we're good, right? So, which leads to the next one about asking deep questions that I think, as we were discussing, there's a time for deep questions, there's a time for deep answers, but it's not all the time, right? And so, but I think the ability, the desire to ask questions that don't have like a simple yes or no answer, that require reflection and discussion, and maybe, as we talked about many times before, keeping an open mindset, we have a discussion about something where, you know what, I don't necessarily agree, and I don't even know if I like that, but it's new information. Let me consider.
Sure.
Right?
I think what I get more as, obviously I'm a little bit younger than you, and some of my friends are already.
Obviously, yeah, sorry.
Some of these people in my life, and I work with people who are younger than the people that you work with. Like, so that when I ask certain questions, it's very important for me to meet people where they are.
Yes, I think that's it.
So I think like you and I can ask each other deep questions all the time when we're in person, and we have relatively deep answers for each other. But that's not for everyone. Like if we have this challenging question to be like, I can't even think of one right now. But even if you ask for, we're talking about a certain person in your life, and you ask that person for what could you have improved upon? What if that person's never been put in that situation?
Yes.
And then it's just like, all right, cool. Let me put this in your court. Come back to me. Come back to me. I just want to ask you this because it's important for you to think about what your current shortcomings are. But that doesn't mean it has to be a permanent shortcoming. But like this is just something that you have to work on. I think it'd be a lot more valuable if you were the person that's thought about what you had to work on as opposed to just me telling you, because like eventually when you become an adult, no one's going to tell you what you need to work on.
Exactly. I just expect that you sort of can figure that out.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a tough goal. Asking deep questions. I err on the side of being verbose, and that's not for everybody.
Pause for a moment. What does verbose mean, please?
Oh, verbose.
I know what it means.
Yes. Using a lot of words when less words may still get the job done, right? So there's an example. I've been told that, you use big words, and I'm like, on one hand, I'm like, big words. Words are there to use. Whether or not someone likes them or they think you should use simple language is a product of what they need or may not need. But I also can take in the fact that I do recognize that, yes, sometimes I will speak maybe more words than necessary because I want to articulate it in a way. And other times, I should just use less or not say much at all. So
if we go to number one, they're open on the source material. So they're open to being wrong. Do you think in that situation then, because I don't think you're wrong by saying more words than what is needed, because I think that's your occupation to fill the space, because oftentimes young adults, when they come into a university classroom, are still, I can speak from experience, like when I was 18 to 22, I was not this version of myself where I was assured enough to speak up. So I think part of being verbose is that it's just been something that's been conditioned because you've had to fill the space.
To some extent, yes, but in more recent years, I've tried to lessen that, and then I'm trying to decide that how do I engage them? How do I get them to engage more? Because you're right, a bunch of the younger students don't want to come out and say out loud or otherwise, and so I think my ability or desire to use lots of words is something that's a little bit more ingrained in relative to other things. Because I actually don't like to fill the time with my words. So my classes are only maximum 2 hours. Maximum.
That's too long for you.
I
don't want to be with you for 2 hours.
I know. And I'm talking for about 45 minutes of that time. And so I really like to, in my own program, build in this time for reflection and asking them to ask themselves deep questions, which I say, you don't owe me an answer. I'm putting the question out there. You think about it. You do what you need to do. So I'm trying to get them to do that reflective skill to as much or as little words as possible, but just try to do it. And that's really, for me, that takes a long time because I use a lot of words out loud. I use a lot of words in my head. Sure. So it takes time.
Yeah, because I think that's really cool. But it's something I've learned from my experience as a student as well. Is one of the most valuable things for someone, like to relate that back to how do we not let one person talk the air out of the room, is like breakout groups. Like I've really valued breakout groups because like I've learned so much as a student and in my roles as facilitators. Whenever you have the opportunity, like there's brilliant insights from people that they just don't feel comfortable with transmitting in front of 30 people. Right. But once you break it down to 3, you're like, wow, like why didn't you say this in front of everyone? Because it's like, oh, it's like I didn't feel like you get a litany of answers of like why that person doesn't feel comfortable with sharing in front of the group. I'm like, yeah, this is like withheld brilliance.
Right. And what their perception of intimacy is or isn't, right? So more people talk in the room, that feels a little bit more intimate than, oh, I got to say this in front of 30 or 40 people. That can be daunting and anxiety filled. And so for myself, I'm just trying to, hey, you can type it out, you can say it out, you just try something. Yeah. Or even if you don't want it, write it down, put it in a journal, write it down and text, and don't share it, but at least just try and get it out.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah. So what else do you have on the list?
We talked a little bit about this, but one of the items on the list is they inspire others. And so I think this is something that I hope that I'm able to do. I'm not always, I'm not terribly worried about whether I'm successful or not, but it's nice to get validation from previous students who say, and even sometimes students say right away, some get it right away and they're able to say, and other times they've said something years later. And so I think on our way in, we were talking about, something you did, you got some feedback, but this is just, you didn't do something special. This is just how you show up. It's your intention. I want to do this way. I think this is the best way that I can show up and do this. And what was nice is that I got some positive feedback, but that wasn't the reason I did it. I did it because I felt it should be this the best way. It's the best I can do. And that was nice to hear, but okay. So, inspiring others, I think, isn't led by the desire, I need to inspire you. I think I'm inspiring myself. I want to show up and be this way. And if that catches on, then that's fantastic.
Yeah. Because I think one thing that even like 2 to 3 years ago, I wanted to, like, being inspiring was vocational for me. But then I've really worked on that and have sharpened my relationship with being inspirational, because I realized that however I conduct myself, to use a metaphor, because I love application.
Yes.
If you put a fire to a candle, it will light it. But if you put a fire to water, it's just going to evaporate. So I am just one form of elements in this world. And however I best show up, no matter what happens, if I'm the wrong type of leader or person to this other person, it doesn't matter how hard I try to be inspirational, it's not going to be motivational. So I've really worked hard on that, to be like, I'm going to show up, like you said, as my authentic self. And if it works, fantastic. We have a two-way relationship now. If not, let's have dignity, let's have respect, let's have rapport. But it doesn't mean my way is wrong. It doesn't mean you're not receiving information. You are just water to my fire, or vice versa. Because and that doesn't mean we're not doing anything. Like, to link number 10 with number on the source material to number 1 of I'm open to being wrong. Maybe I said something that may have offended you. Maybe my affect is not for your affect. Like, so many, there's like probably 18 different factors that we go on. But ultimately it just lands on, I'm not the right person to lead you. We are not meant to get along at the highest vibrancy. And that's cool.
And that's cool. One thing I'll challenge about the title is that I don't like wrongness or rightness, and I've been trying to strive for it, because this leads me to that. How can they're open to improvement, open to recognizing that they could have done better than they did, because rightness and wrongness, it sort of describes the state. This is wrong.
What are we talking about here?
You said they're open to being wrong.
Oh, yes, sorry.
I was pushing back on the title, and so just even in the language, I try to encourage my students to get away from the binary, right or wrong, good or bad. It's like, okay, what do we have? What is this? Can we improve? Is there something we can look at? Can we think critically about it? Can we take something we don't like and examine it for its merit and be like, oh, I don't like all this, but that's something I should look into. And I think that is open to new information. Leads all the way back to the thing we always talk about, which is open mindset versus fixed. Because if you're in a fixed mindset, things are very much right or wrong. If you're an open mindset, things are very much, okay, well, maybe that could be better, or I don't like that, or I don't agree with that, but I think I can improve, I can. So just trying to be adaptable and make sure it's not, that's wrong, so we have to counter with something that's right.
Well, you've talked about this. It's the yes and model.
Yes.
Like there's whatever we're talking about. Artificial intelligence, basketball strategy, relationship with your family. There's consistently areas where we as human beings will side with some things that someone says and no to other things. So I think, is there the intersection and having them open-minded to be like, all right, cool, yes, I hear that. However, like this other part here, not so much for me. And I think that is a huge thing to be able to transmit. I think that comes with experience, but as well as awareness and maturity. To be like, that's not for me right now. But then I like the other stuff though.
And I think just for me, what I'm working on with my own therapist, one thing is identification of what is threatening. Now, I thought that I was having a good go at identifying threat as it comes, but what was put as a challenge to me as describing a situation, the therapist was like, oh, okay, well, you said this, but that sounds like you said a bunch of things, but, and everything before the but was like, whatever. And so I'm like, what I took from that was, okay, I think my identification of threat should start earlier. And by that I mean recognizing some physiological, like, you know, I'm feeling something in here, I'm feeling frustration, maybe hands gripping or whatever. And I think those are the physiological cues that are happening before maybe my voice gets raised or it's like, okay.
So would you say that, to relate to number 6, that you are working on being uncomfortable with, you're working on being comfortable with uncertainty? Or is that
No, I think that's good because I'm uncomfortable and I think a lot of things I find, to use more words, are contextual.
Stop using so much.
I know. It's a problem. I got a condition. What I'm saying is that sometimes I'm very comfortable with uncertainty as it relates to working, but other things I'm not comfortable with uncertainty.
I think that's called being a human.
Right? It is, right? It's a human experience. So to your point, yes, I'm working on being uncomfortable with uncertainty in the contexts where I have previously been uncomfortable. Relationships, talking about something here that's close to me. Oh, I don't like uncertainty, I don't like vagueness, and as the ADHD person, vagueness is like, I don't like vagueness at all. I like it straightforward.
And I felt that, but
right?
You've never made that sound ever. I felt that shit.
You're cool. So yeah. Dealing with uncertainty is definitely a real challenge for me as it relates to relationship contexts and things that are close. And so I'm definitely, I've had a real check on that in the past few weeks and I'm working through that.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. You know, I have my own type of relationship with uncertainty and we talked about this on the way in. There are certain things in which I get uncertain for, and that's usually the first time I do something. Mm-hmm. The example I used was bungee jumping, for example. It was very scary the first time when someone would have to like push me off that thing just to do that for a litany of factors. Mm-hmm. But then now, just like, if we're to go right now, I don't know if I want to pay $180 for it right now. But yeah, however, like, like, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I think like, I actually have a very healthy relationship with this right now. Not because I'm comfortable with uncertainty, but because I think like, because of everything else I've been through with navigating suicidal ideations, when I get to a place now, I'm like, what could really be worse than that? Let's just do the thing. Let's do the thing, get some information on it, and by information is a derivative of action. In this case, I've taken the action. Let's do the thing. usually it's not that bad. You're like, okay, cool. Some philosopher once said that most suffering is in the mind. After you do, and sorry for the philosopher, that I'm not able to ascribe this to you.
Well, I have to put that in the notes somewhere.
So I think I genuinely have a really, really healthy relationship with this right now. To be like, unless like I'm about to go to dinner with like the most beautiful girl in the world, every day in which I wake up, I'm like, all right, cool. Because I think we talked about this as well. One thing that like I used to be really scared of like administrative things. They could be like, oh, I have to do like X, Y, or Z. I have to apply for this grant for work, whatever. But then like one time I was, someone broke it down to me because while we were at the hot tub, and like this random stranger was like, he was saying that he worked in bureaucracy before, and he broke it down to me in the simplest terms, saying, what if you just viewed it as I'm just filling out a form? And ever since then I'm like, cool, like I have to submit this form, I have to submit like, I don't know, like student loan, for example, was something I just had to do recently. Like before that person said that to me, I'd be thinking about it for like 2 days to be like, okay, like I gotta get like my T1 tax form, I gotta do like whatever. And now I'm just like, okay, I'm filling out the form. And then 5 minutes later, I'm done. So it's such like a healthy way to do it.
You covered a whole bunch of ground there.
Yeah, sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
I was trying to be you.
No, I know. I was trying to verbose.
Yes.
So I said one thing I want to touch on. You went from suicide ideation to gratitude, and there's a lot of in there. And why I like that, and why I wanted to bring that out is because what people understand is that there's a lot of work that needs to get done. A lot of reflective work, a lot of really hard personal work that brings you from this place to that place. And it's not to be diminished, right? It's real, right? And so I appreciate you for bringing it up because it's hard. It's hard to find gratitude when your thoughts are bringing you to a place where gratitude can't be found. And you have to work to bring it back to an atomic habits point. I want to break it down to the smallest improvement. So I got this big form fill out that's going to relate to my financial security as well as to this thing. All that's true, but right now I just have the thing and I just have to put this here.
Yeah.
Now, if I say just have to, I don't want to diminish it, but it's one tiny step in the larger goal, but I'm focused on this tiny step and it allows me to sort of let go of the larger problems, things, potential downfall, and just get this one thing done. And I think as we're able to look those things in small chunks, maybe I'll find some gratitude. You know what? I just got to get this done, and I think it's going to be okay. I can consider that another time, but if I'm always considering that, it's going to be so hard to get this one little thing done. It's debilitating.
Yeah. From what I hear from you, you're grasping with that right now. Is that right to say? But yeah, okay, I'll bring this back to me then. I think.
No, it's fine.
Thank you for bringing up because it's really, really challenging for me to look back at that place of where I didn't want to live, but then I've come so far from it where I don't really think about that anymore. So it's nice to be able to for someone to acknowledge there was probably 76 to 275 steps between that stuff to get here. But it's really, really cool to when people. As a therapist in training along, it really helps me when people tell me about certain things. I have to really have a healthy relationship about it because, sometimes I'm like, are you? Obviously, I won't tell the client this, but are you really complaining about this? It's I've been through X, but there's still things where people tell me I'm like, whoa, that is even more intense. So I think I really like the continuum of challenge versus trauma. I think to me, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is no BS, guys. This is something I tell myself whenever I get to wake up. I feel like every day since that period in my life where I didn't want to be here, I tell myself every morning, I'm like, this is it. This is awesome. This is a beautiful day. This is genuinely the place I operate from when I don't have those thoughts, or I haven't had those thoughts in a long time. Knock on all the wood. So, yeah, I don't want to
But I want to just knock on the wood. I just want to. I'll push back on the knock on the wood because how you found your way from one place to the other wasn't luck. Knock on wood is a description of I'm lucky enough, but that took work, reflective work, deep, dark, and pondering and working and getting up and doing the things you had to do, even though you felt in this really dark place. And I just want to acknowledge that the strength and the fire and the desire that takes is relative to the fact that I found myself in this bottom place and I found a way to get up. I found a way. It wasn't given to me. I didn't roll the dice. I had to find it, grab hold of it, and pull myself up. There was no one else. There's no one else there. Just you.
I want to give a lot of credit to being, I think we talk a lot about privilege.
Yeah.
Having the financial ability to access and to, I want to give myself credit for trying every sort of help there is. However, these things are expensive, and I'm glad I come from a family as well as having my own financial resources to try all this. I give myself all the credit to try them, but at the same time, I had a lot of financial help to give the try.
You had some options. Yeah. The privilege.
I had to take the options. Though.
Yes, you had to take the options.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you saying that because it's hard, and people, as we've talked about the idea of mental wellness and men, we've had discussions about lots of those things. And I find that this is really a really difficult spot for men in particular because of how we're socialized and how we're supposed to do and what we're supposed to allow and not allow. Finding ourselves in that.
Define this specifically. You said like this is really hard. Like what is?
When I say discussion of everything from suicidal ideation to gratitude, because normally men don't sit around and talk about how they're in their worst place emotionally. In an open conversation, and I think that that's unfortunate because if we're able to do that, even though that we will always want that to be some topic of discussion, the fact that we can and show up and be that and have people be like, okay, that's cool, I know, and then we were as opposed to, oh my gosh, you felt that way? Oh, something must be wrong with you, like the judgment.
Sure.
And so to me, I'd like to move more towards a place in the world where someone can actually share that part and share the delta, the difference between where they were to where they were, just like as you did, and know that was there, but now I'm here. But I know that was there. And I think that comes from a little bit more safety in our interactions.
Yeah. And you know what's really, really interesting is that being in this place now, of gratitude, joy, zest, enthusiasm, all of it.
Zest.
Doritos. Now that then we go back to some of the things that normal men would talk, not normal men, day to day and traditional men would talk about. Like yesterday morning, my favorite European soccer team, Arsenal Football Club, lost a game that's decreased their chances to win the championship from 50% to around probably 6 or 7. And I just sat there, the game finished at 7:30. I just sat there for 15 minutes. I was like, I want to cry. And that's and that's still part of the human experience, guys. There's a human experience of I don't want to live, but there's an experience of I want to live, but then this thing is still really sad, right? And that's still cool. You don't always have to be in one state or the other. It's cool to be man, this still really means to me because I put a lot of money into buying merchandise and to subscribing into subscribing to all the streams that I can watch every single game and all my time and my energy of and then when it doesn't come back, you're oh, I just want to sit here for 15 minutes and I did cry, but I felt like I wanted to cry. And that's totally cool because I love it. Zest, enthusiasm, whatever.
I recently saw, because I'm not into the sporting events, but there was something going on where a dude was crying because they just won the championship. I don't know, baseball.
LA Dodgers, I think.
Okay, yes. And so what I thought was interesting about that is here, in this context, we're able to show that this is really cool. This man is weeping over this experience, which was essentially a happy thing. Yeah. But what I immediately thought was that what if he was weeping over being sad about something, about the loss of it? Would we elevate it and say, hey, you know what? That's awesome. He was able to engage with his tears because he was sad. They lost, and he's net. But we don't do that, and that's part of the problem of what I'm saying, the masculinity. This context was great to show because he was happy about something. He accomplished something that everybody wanted him to accomplish. He had tears about it, and that's okay. But if the opposite was true, the tears would not be okay. It would be a show of weakness, as it were. And so, to me, I'd like to like, okay, you can engage with the tears as you describe. This thing, you know, my team losing, it's got nothing to do with me, but I invested in it time and energy and everything. I can shed tears over that. I can. It's okay. It's normal and natural. I can also be like, oh man, that was some bullshit, and shed tears over that. All tears are part of the human experience, and I think we've socialized them and described them to be when it's okay to shed them and when it's not okay.
But also, like, I want to take that further, not just be like just tears, but negative emotion in general.
Right.
Yeah. Be like we're talking about with the conversation that you had with someone earlier about like trying to dive into what you could have done better and the family of emotions that come with negative feedback.
Yeah.
I just don't think like humans might be too far. Let's say a lot of people don't get the time and space to sit with that. Just to be like, oh, I feel sad. Well, most parents would be like, okay, like what can I do to help you out of the state?
Right.
Let's go shopping. Let's take you to the playground. Let's I don't know. Like I've never been a parent. You've been a parent.
I totally get you.
But they're like, let's sit. Let's sit. Like why, and then also why, how, and what can we do to get you out of the state? No, not at a time where I want you to get you out of it. But what can you do? Obviously, it's different if it's like a 3-year-old. Be like, I don't know.
Yes, but
here's the pacifier.
Yeah.
But then like in this situation, but if we're talking adult to adult, let's sit with that. Like, feel like. So yesterday, for example, let's just dive into it. Like yesterday, I had clients at 9, so I had an hour and a half to grieve. And I was like, okay, hour. At 8, I told myself, at 8:30, I'll release this emotion. But for 1 hour, I'm allowed to feel as sad as I want, because I love this. So that's an example of my own, like I was my own therapist yesterday for an hour.
It's cheaper.
Yeah.
I liken that to the analogies I use now. When I'm in a dark tunnel, I can see the opening. And I know that there is an opening, but right now I'm going to walk through in the darkness. I'm going to walk through, and eventually I'll come out. Because I can accept, I know that I will come out, as opposed to being that that light that just keeps moving forward. I'm going to get there, but I'm going to walk through the darkness and experience whatever it is. And that's hard to accept sometimes. It really is. But in the back of my mind, I know it will be over. I can allow myself to do this, and then move forward and reflect on it.
You bring a light? Like, do you bring artificial light, like a flashlight, like your phone, like?
Sometimes
you just walk.
Sometimes you're.
You just follow the light at the end.
Because sometimes you don't have a lifeline. None of it. Yeah. Sometimes you're just existing in it, and you know what? To put the analogy further, I don't know how. Sometimes I don't know how long I'll be in tunnel because you had a thing to do later, but sometimes I don't have an appointment. I don't have a reason.
That really sucks.
I don't have a reason to stop this thing. There's just time. So can I exist in this state for however long it takes, and find my way to be like, okay, that's the work.
That is the work. That is the work. So, because I think I think we should getting into a good time here. Like I think the last one we can discuss from the source material is like number 8. They learn from failure. I think sometimes in darkness, if we use to continue the analogy. Viewers and listeners, let us know if we're going too far with this stuff. But sometimes when you're in the dark, you run into a wall.
Yeah, that you didn't see coming.
Yeah, it's like
it's dark.
Yeah, mostly my analogy. I like to more think of it when I was in those dark places as like a never-ending maze, like Alice in Wonderland. And different things would pop up. I couldn't get out of the maze. I didn't really get dark for me. I just got lost, really, really lost. But then, like, if we're going with the dark analogy, yeah, sometimes you don't know what that next thing is coming. You also are directionless. So I'll let you continue to take it.
Yeah, no, having no North Star, no ability to, in my own work, I talk to students about failure and accepting, you know what, when we hit that wall, how do we make a choice on what to do next? How do we do what's next? What is next?
Yeah, what is next?
And oftentimes, as you described before, that the end goal, the thing that I want to achieve is not what's next, but we focus on it. But I'm here, I'm stuck, it hasn't been good. Whatever, all the choices I have been making have not produced the results that I want, but yet I'm still here. I still am trying to figure out what's next, and that's really hard. That's where the failure and the compounding of failure, what I try to get students to recognize is that compounding of failure is still learning. We still learn from it.
Yeah.
We still, if we're not able to take from that failure something we reflect on and something we can figure as how can I do better, how can I improve, what did I learn from that? Not so much that failure didn't get me closer to my goal, but what did I learn from the failure? Because that is a difficult pill to swallow. It didn't work. It's supposed to work. I'm supposed to get it to work. I want it to work. It's not working. That means
So what do you, sorry to interrupt, what do you tell yourself in those situations where you quote unquote fail? And what are some active strategies that you currently have to be like, all right, cool, let's learn from this, let's go?
What do I know? What have I done? What has worked in the past?
Say that one more time, please.
What do I know? What have I done? What has worked in the past? So what I try to do is get students to realize what we call a strengths-based approach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's been times when I haven't been successful. What did I do in those times? There's not always a clear through line or an allegory that says this is the exact same, but I think as humans, we have the ability to get through some things, and it worked. So the times when it's not working, how do I call up that skill? How do I reflect on what I did then and try and do some version of what's appropriate here? But because if I always focus on it didn't work, I sucked, didn't work, I'm stuck, there's nowhere to go. But if I reflect on, I'm a human, I'm here, because I'm here, I must have traveled here. What in my travels has prepared me to have brought me here is not all negative.
Yeah. And can I add to that?
Yeah, please.
I think it's really cool as well to combine strategies.
100%.
To be like, yo, I speak to myself.
Yo.
But if I were to say to someone else, hello, or hey, what if you were to take something that didn't work, but apply it with just this little part of what did work? It's like maybe you were very close with the strategy that didn't work.
Yes.
You just needed this. You need 5% from what did work. So I think one of the challenges, I want to challenge your analogy there. One of the challenges of trying to like, oh yeah, like I was successful in, for example, I was successful in my immigration status from wherever to here, but now I want to have the same level of success as I did in my homeland. I think those are entirely different challenges. So I think to develop new strategies, but to take what you've learned from those places, I think that would jive more for me, as opposed to be like, hey, this didn't work.
Well,
this worked.
one of the is adaptability. I can take what I did, but I need to adapt it to this situation. It's not the same,
Sure.
but some of those things I can use.
Yeah.
And so I find that it's much more helpful to students to just, again, know that they can fail, they can try again. I've removed the artificial penalization and the consequence. I don't like to lead with the stick anymore, as I've trained myself out of. If you lead with consequences, you get behavior that follows that. If you lead with, okay, what's possible? What can I do? How do we support each other, ourselves? I think I think it sort of encourages intrinsic motivation as opposed to extrinsic. Oh, I'm going to suffer a penalty if I don't do that? Okay, I better do what's supposed to, or better do what you asked me to as opposed to, oh, that's possible over there. It's going to be excellent if you, maybe, but what can we do? How can we improve and acknowledge that we're just on our way? I find that intrinsic motivation is not something I teach. It's something I offer as a better possibility if you choose to engage with it.
For sure. So I think something else we talked about before we started was one of my mantras that I used in a social media post was obsession with process over outcome. So I think
We've done that a great deal, yes.
Yeah, that's what I do every day. It's what I embody, and it's my affect. Is that failure with, in scare quotes, allowing others to fail starts with your relationship with failure yourself. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, I let myself fail all the time because I think, and it's actually led to some like recent successes which we've shared. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm not going to allow those successes to get to. It's not going to break my model because be like, oh, now I have temporary success. Therefore, I should embrace success. Be like, no. Let's check yourself here, kid.
Yeah.
Kid, as in, I talk to myself.
Yeah.
Like I want to parent myself sometimes. I think that's really important as an adult to continue to have that little angel on your shoulder. But yeah, just so regardless of what happens, I've had a little bit of success recently. I'm going to take all that success with gratitude, enthusiasm, all the things we've talked about for the last 50 minutes. However, mantra doesn't change. Obsession with outcome, I will be insane to be like, now I want to obsess over results, because then I know where that leads. Mm-hmm. And I know it's usually to back to those dark rooms, or to oceans, or to mazes, or whatever analogy you want to use. But if I'm obsessed with outcome, like, I'm just sitting on a nice grass field, doing my best to make sure that it's nice and maintenance, so that whoever comes to my garden feels like they're also in a place of zen. But that's all I got today.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's good.